The rescue ship came down slowly through the gray dust clouds of Calvus 7. It was a small moon, far from any sun, cold and empty. Nothing lived here. Nothing could live here. The air was thin and poison. The ground was covered in sharp rocks and deep craters. Captain Tella stood at the front window of her ship and looked down at the crash site. She was a Valorian, tall and thin, with skin that looked like blue glass. Through her skin, you could see soft lights moving, like thoughts traveling through her body. She had been doing rescue work for 20 years. She had seen many crashes. She had found many bodies. Today would be the same, she thought. The human cargo ship had broken apart in the atmosphere. Pieces of it were scattered across 2 kilometers of gray wasteland. Fire had burned most of it black. No one could survive something like this. "Prepare the body bags," she said quietly to her crew, "and the death certificates. We will need to contact Earth authorities." Her second officer, a 4-armed Crethian named Bomo, nodded his large orange head. His compound eyes, made of hundreds of tiny lenses, reflected the burning wreckage below. "Such a waste," he said. The human was young, according to the flight records. Only 32 cycles. "Humans do not live long anyway," Tilla replied. 80 cycles at most. They burn bright and fast like cheap fuel. The ship landed with a soft thump. The rescue team put on their breathing masks and environmental suits. The door opened, and cold gray air rushed in. Tella stepped out first, her boots crunching on the frozen ground. That was when she saw him. Uff. Human was sitting on a flat piece of burned metal about 50 meters away. He was not wearing a full environmental suit, only an emergency breathing mask and a torn flight jacket. He was eating something from a silver packet. When he saw the rescue team, he raised one hand and waved. Tilla stopped walking. Behind her, Bomo made a choking sound. "Is that?" Bomo started. "The pilot," Tilla finished. "He is alive." They approached slowly, as if the human might disappear if they moved too fast. Up close, Tella could see that he was in bad shape. His face was covered in cuts and dried blood. His flight suit was torn in many places. His right arm hung at his side in a way that arms should not hang. But his eyes were clear and focused, and he was chewing his emergency ration with calm, steady movements. "Hey," the human said. His voice was rough, but friendly. "You guys took a while. I was starting to think I would have to walk to the nearest station." He laughed, then winced. "Okay, walking might be a problem. But I was thinking about it." Tella pulled out her medical scanner and pointed it at him. The device made a sound. Then another sound. Then it started beeping in a way she had never heard before. "This is broken," she said, shaking it. "The readings cannot be correct." Bomo leaned over and looked at the screen. His forearms went stiff with shock. "Captain, the scanner is working fine. I am seeing 17 skeletal fractures, 3 in the lower limbs, 4 in the rib area, 2 in the spinal column, and his right arm is," he counted silently, 8 separate breaks. The bone is almost powder in some places." The human, whose name tag said Park Doyen, looked at his ruined arm with mild interest. "Oh, that? Yeah, I think I landed on it wrong when I climbed out of the ship. I heard some crunching sounds. Felt weird." "Felt weird," Tella repeated slowly. "You have 17 broken bones, and it felt weird?" Diane shrugged with his good shoulder. "I mean, it hurt. It hurt a lot, actually. Still does. But what am I supposed to do about it? Crying would not fix anything." He took another bite of his ration. "Is that a medical ship? Please tell me you have painkillers. The good ones, not the weak stuff." Tella looked at Bomo. Bomo looked at Tella. Neither of them knew what to say. In their experience, creatures with this many injuries did not talk. They did not eat. They did not make jokes about painkillers. They lay still and quiet and waited for death, or death had already taken them. The idea of sitting up and having a casual conversation with 17 broken bones was not just unlikely. It was supposed to be impossible. "Human," Tila said carefully. "Can you stand?" "Probably not," Doyan admitted. "My legs are pretty messed up. But I can crawl if you need me to. Or you could carry me. I am not proud. Well, I am a little proud, but not too proud to be carried." Bomo moved forward and carefully lifted the human with his 4 arms. Diane was lighter than he expected. Humans were small creatures, really. Soft skin, weak bones, no natural weapons. They had no claws, no armor, no poison. On paper, they were one of the most fragile species in the galaxy, but this one had fallen from the sky in a burning ship. He had crawled out of the wreckage with 17 broken bones. He had sat in the freezing cold for 6 hours, waiting for rescue. And his biggest complaint was that they did not bring Coffee Dot as Bomo carried him toward the rescue ship. Diane looked back at the scattered remains of his vessel. His expression was sad for a moment. "That was a good ship," he said quietly. "The Morning Star. I had her for 3 years. She deserved better." "You were worried about the ship?" Bomo asked, confused. "You almost died." Doyen smiled. It was a strange smile, full of pain but also something else. Something that Bomo did not have a word for. "Almost does not count," the human said. "Almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. That is what my father always said." Bomo had no idea what horseshoes or hand grenades were, but he was beginning to understand that humans were something very different from what the databases said. Something the galaxy was not prepared for. And for the first time in his life, the 4-armed Crethian felt a small shiver of fear when he looked at the broken, bleeding, smiling creature in his arms. The medical bay of the rescue ship was small but clean. White walls, white lights, white machines that hummed and beeped. The medical officer was a Makari named Yuna, a small creature covered in soft gray fur with large dark eyes. She had been a doctor for 40 years. She had treated hundreds of patients from dozens of species. She thought she had seen everything. She was raw. Park Doyen lay on the medical table, his body connected to many machines. Tubes carried medicine into his blood. Scanners watched his heart and brain. A special machine was slowly putting his bones back together, using tiny robots that worked inside his body. It was painful work. Very painful, and the human was talking. "So anyway, when the hull first cracked, I knew I was in trouble," Doyen said, his voice only slightly strained. "The air started rushing out, and I could feel my ears popping. Not a good sign, you know? I had maybe 30 seconds before I passed out." Yuna pressed a bone-setting tool against his ribcage. There was a clicking sound as the broken pieces moved back into place. Most patients would scream. Diane just paused his story and took a deep breath. "That hurt," he said. "Okay, where was I?" "Right, the air. So I grabbed the emergency foam canister and sealed myself in the cargo hold. It is this special foam that hardens really fast and keeps air in. Made a little bubble for myself. Rode the whole crash down inside it." "You rode the crash down," Yuna repeated. "In a foam bubble, while your ship broke into pieces." "Yeah, bumpy landing though. 0 out of 10, would not recommend." He tried to laugh, then winced as his broken ribs protested. "The foam protected me from the worst of it, but I still bounced around pretty good. That is how I got most of these breaks, I think. The arm happened after, when I was crawling out." Yuna looked at her screens. The human's pain levels were extremely high. The machine showed that his nervous system was sending constant distress signals to his brain. He should be screaming. He should be unconscious. His body should have shut down to protect itself from the overwhelming sensation. The park Dian was awake, alert, and telling stories about his near-death experience like it was an interesting adventure. "Human," Una said, putting down her tools for a moment. "I need to understand something. Your pain levels right now are higher than what most species can survive. How are you still conscious? How are you still speaking?" Dian thought about this for a moment. "I guess I just decide to keep going. The pain is there. I know it is there, but I put it in a box in my mind. I deal with it later. Right now, I need to stay awake and stay calm so you can fix me. You put pain in a box," Una said slowly. "Yeah, my grandmother taught me that. She was a survivor of a big earthquake on Earth, back when she was young. She was trapped under a building for 3 days with a broken back. She said she survived by putting the pain somewhere else in her mind and focusing on the rescue sounds above her. When they finally pulled her out, the doctors said she should have died 10 times over. She lived to be 94. Una's fur rippled with unease. "This is normal for your species? This ability to ignore mortal injuries?" "Not ignore exactly. More like manage. We know the pain is real. We just refuse to let it win." Dian smiled weakly. "Stubbornness, my father calls it. The Park family's special talent." Una returned to her work, setting another bone, applying another healing patch. The human winced and breathed deeply, but did not cry out. She had treated Valorians who collapsed from much smaller injuries. She had seen Crethians beg for death after breaking a single limb. The galaxy considered humans to be one of the weaker species. Short-lived and fragile. The galaxy, Una was beginning to realize, was very wrong. "Can I ask you something?" Dian said after a while. "Yes. When you found me, you expected me to be dead, right? Everyone on your ship expected that." Una did not lie. "Yes. When we saw the crash site, we prepared for body recovery, not rescue. Ships do not break apart like that and leave survivors. It does not happen. But it did happen. I am here. Yes, you are here. Against all logic and probability, you are here." Una looked at him with her large, dark eyes. "What I want to know is, when the ship was falling and breaking, when you were injured and alone on a frozen moon with no help coming for hours, did you think you were going to die?" Dian was quiet for a long moment. His smile faded a little. "Yeah, I thought I was going to die. When the ship hit the ground, when I felt my bones breaking, I really thought that was it. I thought about my mom and dad, my little sister, my friends back home, all the things I wanted to do and never got to do. I was scared. Really, really scared. Then why did you not give up? Why did you crawl out of the wreckage? Why did you sit and wait for rescue instead of lying down and accepting death?" The human looked at the ceiling. His eyes were wet, but no tears fell. "Because giving up is not who I am. It is not who my family raised me to be. My grandmother survived 3 days under a building. My grandfather survived a war. My parents worked 18-hour days to give me a better life. I come from people who do not quit, no matter how bad things get." He turned his head to look at her. "When I was sitting out there on that frozen moon, broken and bleeding, I made a decision. I decided that I was going to live, not because I was sure rescue would come, but because I was not going to give the universe the satisfaction of killing me easily. If death wanted me, it would have to work for it." Una finished her work in silence. The bones were set. The healing patches were applied. In a few weeks, this human would be walking again. In a few months, he would be fully recovered. His body would heal itself, rebuild itself, carrying him forward into the rest of his life. As she cleaned her tools, she thought about her own species. Makari were peaceful. When faced with death, they accepted it gracefully. They believed in flowing with the universe, not fighting against it. But watching this small, soft, broken human refuse to die, she wondered if there was something to be said for stubbornness, for fighting, for putting pain in a box and moving forward anyway. Human, she said quietly. What you call stubbornness? I think perhaps it is something more. I think it is a kind of strength that we did not know existed. Diane smiled at her, tired but warm. We are just too dumb to know when to quit. But thank you. That is a nicer way to put it. Outside the medical bay window, stars wheeled slowly past. Somewhere out there, on a frozen moon, the wreckage of the morning star was cooling in the gray dust. It was a grave that should have held a body, but the body had refused to stay. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room that Captain Tella had ever seen. It was built in the center of Union Station, a massive space station that floated between 3 star systems. The chamber was round, with hundreds of seats rising up in circles around a central platform. Representatives from over 200 species sat in those seats, watching and listening. Tella stood on the central platform, feeling very small. Above her, the faces of the galaxy's most powerful beings looked down. Some were curious. Some were confused. Some were afraid, though they tried to hide it. Captain Tella of the Valorian Rescue Service, said the head council member. An ancient being made of living crystal named Elder Voss. His voice was like stones grinding together. You have submitted a report that has caused much discussion. Please share your findings with the full council. Tilla touched a button on her wrist, and a holographic display appeared in the air beside her. It showed the crash site on Kelvis 7, the scattered wreckage, the burned metal, the impossibly vast destruction. 6 days ago, my team responded to a distress signal from this location, she began. A human cargo ship, the Morning Star, had suffered complete atmospheric breach during descent. The ship broke apart at high altitude. Pieces fell across more than 2 kilometers. Fire consumed most of the wreckage. She touched another button. The image changed to show Park Do-yeon sitting on that piece of metal, waving at the camera. We found the pilot alive. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Tella waited for them to quiet before continuing. The pilot, a human named Park Do-yeon, had 17 broken bones. 3 in his legs, 4 in his ribs, 2 in his spine, 8 in his right arm. He also had internal bleeding, a collapsed lung, and severe hypothermia from 6 hours of exposure to the cold. She paused. When we found him, he was eating emergency rations and asked if we had brought coffee. The murmurs grew louder. A delegate from the insect-like Therian collective raised one of its many legs to speak. This is impossible, the Therian said, its voice clicking and buzzing. Our databases clearly state that humans are Category 5 fragile. They cannot survive significant trauma. They have no natural armor, no redundant organs, no advanced healing abilities. This must be a mistake. There is no mistake, Tila replied. All of our medical scans have been verified 3 times. The human sustained injuries that would be fatal to 94% of known species. The remaining 6% would require months of medical coma for recovery. She touched her wrist again. A new video appeared. It showed Park Do-yeon walking out of the medical bay. He was using a cane, and his right arm was wrapped in bandages. But he was walking, smiling, waving at the camera with his good hand. The timestamp showed it was only 3 days after his rescue. This is the same human 72 hours after we found him. He's already mobile. The doctors expect a full recovery within 2 months. The chamber erupted in noise. Hundreds of voices speaking in dozens of languages. Shock, disbelief, fear. Tella stood quietly and waited. Elder Voss raised one crystalline hand, and the chamber fell silent. His ancient eyes, like windows into deep space, focused on the holographic image of the smiling human. "You are certain there was no genetic modification?" he asked. "No cybernetic enhancement? No special drugs or treatments that would explain this survival?" "None, Elder. We checked thoroughly. This is a baseline human. According to his records, he is actually slightly below average physical fitness for his species. He spent most of his youth studying and playing video games." More murmurs. A reptilian delegate from the Sarkith Dominion rose from his seat. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were yellow and cold. "If this is their weak specimen," the Sarkith hissed, "what are their strong ones capable of? What happens when they send their warriors, their soldiers, their elite? Are we looking at a potential threat to galactic security?" "With respect," a calm voice spoke from the back of the chamber, "I believe you are looking at this incorrectly." Everyone turned to see who had spoken. A human woman rose from her seat in the observers section. She was small, barely reaching the chest of most delegates. Her hair was black with streaks of gray, and her face was lined with age. But her eyes were sharp and clear. "Representative Hana," Elder Voss acknowledged. "The human ambassador to the Union. You wish to speak?" "If the council permits." Elder Voss nodded, and Hannah walked down to the central platform. She moved slowly, carefully, like someone who had learned to be patient. When she reached Tella's side, she smiled at the Valorian captain before turning to face the council. "I understand your fear," she said. Her voice was quiet, but somehow filled the entire chamber. "You hear about a human surviving impossible injuries, and you wonder what else we can survive. You wonder if we are dangerous. You wonder if you should be afraid of us." She paused, letting her words settle. "Let me tell you about my species. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Our world has earthquakes that destroy cities, storms that flatten entire regions, floods, droughts, fires, and freezing winters. The animals on our world have claws, teeth, and poison. Even our plants can kill us. And our own star, the sun that gives us light, also gives us cancer." She smiled, and there was something sad in it. "We did not become strong because we were born strong. We became strong because everything around us was trying to kill us, and we refused to die. We learned that pain is just information. We learned that broken bones can heal. We learned that the body will keep going long after the mind says it cannot." She turned to look at the image of Park Doyan. "This man is not special among us. He is not a warrior or a hero. He is a cargo pilot who played too many video games as a child and cannot cook anything except instant noodles. But when death came for him, he did what every human is taught to do from birth. He fought back. He refused to give up. He decided that dying was not an option." She faced the council again. "You ask if we are dangerous. Yes, we are. But not in the way you think. We are not dangerous because we want to conquer you or destroy you. We are dangerous because we do not know how to quit. We are dangerous because when you push us down, we get back up. Every single time. No matter how much it hurts." Her voice grew softer. "We do not want to be your enemies. We want to be your friends, your partners, your allies. But if you are looking for a species that will break easily or surrender quickly, you will need to look elsewhere. That is simply not who we are." The chamber was completely silent. 200 species sat in their seats, looking at the small human woman on the platform. She stood straight and calm, her hands folded in front of her, waiting. Elder Voss spoke at last. His voice was thoughtful. "In my long life, I have seen many species rise and fall. I have watched empires crumble and civilizations vanish. The one thing all fallen species had in common was that they gave up. They decided that continuing was too hard, too painful, too impossible." He looked at Representative Hana with new respect. "Perhaps the galaxy has been measuring strength incorrectly. Perhaps the truest strength is not in armor or weapons or size. Perhaps it is in the simple, stubborn refusal to stay down. Hannah bowed her head slightly. Perhaps it is, Elder, and perhaps that is what we can teach each other. Not how to fight, but how to endure. How to survive. How to keep going when everything says we should stop. The council session ended soon after. But the conversations continued in hallways, in ships, in private chambers across the galaxy. For the first time, the universe was beginning to understand what it meant to be human. And in a small medical bay on a rescue ship. Park Do-yeon ate his dinner, unaware that his refusal to die had changed everything. 2 weeks after his rescue, Park Do-yeon was living in a small room on Union Station. It was not much, just a bed, a desk, a small bathroom, and a window that looked out at the stars. But it was warm and safe, and that was enough for now. His right arm was still wrapped in healing bandages, but he could move his fingers again. His ribs ached when he breathed too deeply, but he could walk without the cane now. The doctor said he was healing faster than expected. They seemed surprised by this. Do-yeon was not. He was sitting at his desk, writing a message to his parents back on Earth, when the door chimed. He saved his message and walked over to open it. Bomo stood in the hallway, all 4 of his arms pressed together in front of his chest. His orange compound eyes moved nervously, looking everywhere except at Do-yeon. "Oh, hey," Do-yeon said, recognizing him. "You are the Krethian from the rescue team, right? The one who carried me to the ship." "Yes, Bomo. My name is Bomo." The words came out quickly, almost stumbling over each other. "I'm sorry to bother you. I can leave if you are busy." "No, it is fine." "Come in." Do-yeon stepped aside and gestured with his good arm. "I was just writing to my family. It can wait." Bomo shuffled inside, his 4 feet clicking softly on the floor. He was much taller than Do-yeon, and his body was built for heavy work, with thick arms and a wide chest. But right now, he looked small somehow, uncertain, like a child visiting a strange place for the first time. "Can I get you something to drink?" Do-yeon asked. "I have water and—" "Actually, just water. The station does not have much variety for humans yet. No coffee, no tea. Definitely no beer." "No, thank you. I do not need anything." Bomo stood in the middle of the small room, his arms still pressed together. "I came because I needed to understand something. I have been thinking about it for 2 weeks, and I cannot find the answer on my own." Do-yeon sat on the edge of his bed and gestured for Bomo to take the chair by the desk. "Okay, what do you need to understand?" Bomo sat carefully, the chair creaking under his weight. He was quiet for a long moment, gathering his thoughts. "When we found you," he said finally, "you were broken. Your body was damaged in ways that should have killed you. You were alone on a frozen moon with no help coming for hours. The cold was eating you alive. Your blood was leaving your body." He paused, his compound eyes focusing on Do-yeon's face. "Why were you not afraid? Why were you sitting there eating food and waving at us like nothing was wrong? How could you be so calm?" Do-yeon did not answer right away. He looked out the window at the stars, thinking about that day. The cold, the pain, the silence of the dead moon. "I was afraid," he said at last. "I was very afraid. When the ship came apart and I was falling, I was more scared than I have ever been in my life. I thought I was going to die. I was sure of it." Bomo leaned forward. "Then how did you keep going? How did you crawl out of the wreckage? How did you sit and wait when death was coming for you?" Do-yeon smiled sadly. "Because being afraid does not mean you stop trying. Fear is just a feeling, like pain or cold or hunger. It tells you something is wrong, something is dangerous. But it does not control you. You can feel the fear and still choose what to do." He held up his bandaged arm. "When I woke up after the crash, everything hurt. My arm was destroyed. My ribs were broken. I could barely breathe. Part of me wanted to just lie there and wait for the end. It would have been easier, less painful. His smile faded. But I kept thinking about my family. My mother, who calls me every week even though I am halfway across the galaxy. My father, who taught me how to fix engines and told me I could be anything I wanted. My little sister, who sends me pictures of her cat because she knows it makes me laugh. His voice grew quiet. I could not give up because of them. Not because they expected me to survive. They would have understood if I died. But because they taught me that giving up is not an option. They showed me, every day of my life, that you keep going no matter how hard things get. You fall down, and you get back up. That is what it means to be part of our family. Bomo was silent for a long time. His forearms slowly relaxed, falling to his sides. Among my people, he said softly, when death comes, we accept it. We believe that fighting against the end is foolish. The universe has decided your time is over, and you should surrender peacefully. We call it the final grace. He looked down at his hands. When I saw you on that moon, broken and bleeding but still fighting, I did not understand. I thought you were crazy. I thought you were in denial, refusing to accept what was obvious. He looked up again, meeting Doyen's eyes. But now I think maybe you knew something that my people do not. Maybe fighting is not foolish. Maybe the universe does not decide when your time is over. Maybe you decide. Doyen nodded slowly. That is one way to look at it. I do not know if we are right or wrong. Maybe your way is wiser, more peaceful. Maybe accepting death is better than fighting against it. He shrugged with his good shoulder. But I cannot live that way. It is not who I am. When something tries to kill me, I fight back. When I fall down, I get back up. Even if getting up is harder than staying down. Even if fighting hurts more than surrendering. That is just how humans work. Bomo stood up slowly. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Billions of them, stretching across the darkness in endless patterns. Your species is very strange, he said. You are small and soft and weak in so many ways. You cannot survive in vacuum. You cannot see in the dark. You cannot breathe underwater. By all logic, you should have gone extinct long ago. He turned to face Doyen. But you did not. You survived everything your world threw at you. And now you are out here, among the stars, with us. Still surviving. Still refusing to give up. He pressed his four hands together in a gesture of respect that Doyen had never seen before. I think I was wrong about your species. I thought you were weak because you break easily. But now I see that breaking is not the same as losing. You break, and then you heal. You fall, and then you rise. That is a different kind of strength. One that we did not have a word for. Doyen stood up and bowed slightly, returning the gesture as best he could. Thank you. Bomo, that means a lot coming from you. Bomo moved toward the door, then stopped. When the station starts selling that drink you mentioned, beer, I would like to buy you one. If that is acceptable. Doyen grinned. I would like that. And I will teach you a human saying. The first round is on me. It means I pay for the first drinks. It is a thing we do with friends. Friends, Bomo repeated. The word sounded strange in his mouth, but not unpleasant. Yes, I think I would like that. He left, his footsteps clicking softly down the hallway. Doyen watched him go, then turned back to the window. Somewhere out there, on a frozen moon, the wreckage of his ship was slowly being covered by gray dust. A grave that had failed to claim him. He smiled and went back to writing his letter home. 6 months had passed since the crash on Kelvis 7. Park Doyen sat in the captain's chair of his new ship, the Second Chance, watching the stars drift slowly past the front window. His right arm was fully healed now, though sometimes it ached when the weather changed. The doctor said that was normal. Scar tissue, they called it. A memory written in bone. The second chance was a good ship. Bigger than the Morning Star had been, with better engines and a stronger hull. The Galactic Union had given it to him as a gift, along with a medal that he kept in a drawer and never looked at. He did not need medals. He just needed to fly. Today, though, he was not flying anywhere. He was parked in orbit around a small green planet called Veloria, waiting for a cargo pickup. And while he waited, he was making a recording. The Council had asked him to contribute something to the Galactic Archives. A message explaining human psychology, they called it. Something to help other species understand how his kind thought and felt. At first, Doyen had said no. He was just a cargo pilot, not a philosopher or a scientist. What did he know about explaining humanity? But Representative Hana had asked him personally, and his mother had called to say that refusing would be rude. And Bomo had sent a message saying that the recording might help other species understand humans better. So here he was, sitting in his captain's chair, talking to a camera while stars wheeled behind him. "Okay," he said, adjusting the camera angle. "So you want to know how I survived? Why I did not die when everything said I should?" I have been thinking about this question for months, and honestly, I still do not have a perfect answer. He leaned back in his chair, looking up at the ceiling. I am not special. I want to make that clear right away. I am not stronger or braver or smarter than other humans. I spent most of my childhood playing video games. I got average grades in school. I became a cargo pilot because it seemed like an easy job that would let me see the stars. He smiled at the memory. When my ship started falling apart that day, I did not suddenly become a hero. I was scared out of my mind. I cried. I prayed to gods I am not sure I believe in. I said goodbye to everyone I loved, even though they could not hear me. His smile faded. But then something strange happened. When I was lying in the wreckage, broken and bleeding, I heard my grandmother's voice in my head. She died when I was 15, but I could hear her as clearly as if she was standing next to me. He was quiet for a moment, remembering. My grandmother was the toughest person I ever knew. When she was young, there was a big earthquake in her city. A building fell on top of her. She was trapped for 3 days with a broken back. No food. No water. Just darkness and pain and the sound of rescuers trying to dig through the rubble. His voice grew soft. She told me that during those 3 days, she never once thought about dying. She thought about living. She thought about the life she wanted to have, the children she wanted to raise, the stories she wanted to tell. She focused on those thoughts so hard that the pain became just noise in the background. He looked directly at the camera. That is what I heard in the wreckage. That is what I heard in the wreckage. Her voice telling me to focus on living. So that is what I did. I stopped thinking about how much it hurt. I stopped thinking about how impossible survival was. I just thought about getting up, crawling out, and waiting for help. He spread his hands. That is the best answer I can give you. I survived because I decided to survive. Not because I knew I could. Not because I had some special power. I just decided in that moment that dying was not acceptable to me. And then I acted on that decision. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Here is what I have learned from traveling among all of you amazing species. Every one of you has something incredible. The Valorians can see in spectrums of light that humans cannot even imagine. The Krethians are strong enough to lift objects 10 times their weight. The Makari can heal from injuries that would kill us. He turned back to the camera. But humans have something too. We have stubbornness. We have the inability to know when we are beaten. When the universe tells us it is time to give up, we say no. When our bodies say they cannot continue, we find a way to continue anyway. He smiled. My grandmother used to say this: fall down 7 times, stand up 8. I never understood what it meant when I was young. 7 falls, 8 rises. How does that math work? But now I understand. It is not about the math. It is about always getting up one more time than you fall down. Always. He walked back to his chair and sat down. To whoever is watching this, whether you are human or something else entirely, I want you to remember one thing. The universe is hostile. It is cold and dark and full of things that want you dead. Every single day you are alive is a victory against impossible odds. His eyes were bright. So do not give the universe the satisfaction of giving up. When you fall down, get back up. When you break, heal. When death comes knocking at your door, tell it to come back later because you are busy living. He grinned at the camera. That is how humans think. That is how I survived. And that is the only advice I have to offer. He reached for the recording button, then paused. Oh, one more thing. To whoever is cataloging this in the archives, please make sure my mother can see it. She's been bugging me to make a motivational speech ever since I was rescued. This probably was not what she had in mind, but it is the best I can do. He winked. Hi, Mom. I love you. I am eating enough and sleeping well. Please stop sending me instant noodles. The cargo holds are full of them. He pressed the button and the recording ended. Outside the window, the stars continued their endless dance. Somewhere in the distance, on a frozen moon, the grave of the morning star lay empty and forgotten. Its pilot had refused to fill it, and somewhere in the galactic archives, a small recording was being cataloged and tagged for required viewing by all xenobiology students. A note was attached, written by Elder Voss himself. Perhaps we have underestimated the small soft ones. Perhaps strength is not in armor or weapons or size. Perhaps it is simply in the refusal to stay down. Park Doyon piloted his ship toward his next delivery, humming an old song his grandmother used to sing. Behind him, the universe stretched out in all directions, vast and cold and indifferent. He smiled at it anyway. Come on then, he said to the stars. Show me what you have got. The stars, as always, did not answer. But Doyon knew they would try again eventually. They always did, and he would be ready. The end.